Hello and welcome to the Amateur Austenite. My name is Frances Duncan. I am an author and the founder of the Jane Austen Society of New Zealand. My co-host is my friend Sian.
Hello.
And today we're discussing Chapter 3 of Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. So we're going to do something slightly different and see how it works. I'm going to read the chapter and we might stop and discuss little bits as we go, or I might read all the way through and we just discuss at the end. Let's see how it goes. Chapter 3. The first event of any importance in the family was the death of Mr Norris, which happened when Fanny was about 15 and necessarily introduced alterations and novelties. Mrs Norris, on quitting the parsonage, removed first to the park and afterwards to a small house of Sir Thomas's in the village, and consoled herself for the loss of her husband by considering that she could do very well without him, and for her reduction of income by the evident necessity of stricter economy. She did not care about her husband at all.
No.
Marriage of convenience?
It was a marriage of convenience to her. I'm not sure how convenient it was to him.
And she loves her economy.
Well, she likes spending other people's money.
That's a different way to do economy. The living was hereafter for Edmund, and had his uncle died a few years sooner, it would have been duly given to some friend to hold till he were old enough for orders. Fanny's 15. He's 21. Is he not old enough for orders?
I don't know. That's interesting. I might have to check that one up.
Because he doesn't get into orders till he's 24?
Well, I suppose it's quite different from being a curate, isn't it? So I think you've actually got to do a Doctor of Divinity.
I know Dr. Grant did, but I don't know if anybody else does, because Mr Norris wasn't a doctor.
That's a little thing to look up, isn't it?
It's weird, though. 21, you'd assume he'd be old enough. But Tom's extravagance had, previous to that event, been so great as to render a different disposal of the next presentation necessary, and the younger brother must help to pay for the pleasures of the elder. Of course, Tom doesn't care.
No, of course not.
There was another family living actually held for Edmund, but though this circumstance had made the arrangement somewhat easier to Sir Thomas's conscience, he could not but feel it to be an act of injustice, and he earnestly tried to impress his eldest son with the same conviction in the hope of its producing a better effect than anything he had yet been able to say or do.
He does try. He does acknowledge
that his kids are not the best.
Well, his elder son's being an elder son is being the irresponsible.
And considering that Sir Thomas is in good health, he might not have to take up the role of baronet for a long time.
Yes. At the moment, he doesn't have any responsibility, which is why, of course, he sends him overseas later.
I blush for you, Tom, said he in his most dignified manner. I blush for the expedient which I am driven on, and I trust I may pity your feelings as a brother on the occasion. You have robbed Edmund for 10, 20, 30 years, perhaps for life, of more than half the income which ought to be his. It may hereafter be in my power, or in yours, I hope it will, to procure him better preferment. But it must not be forgotten that no benefit of that sort would have been beyond his natural claims on us, and that nothing can, in fact, be an equivalent for the certain advantage which he is now obliged to forego through the urgency of your debts. I love Tom's response. Tom listened with some shame and some sorrow, but escaping as quickly as possible, could soon with cheerful selfishness reflect first that he had not been half so much in debt as some of his friends, secondly, that his father had made a most tiresome piece of work of it, and thirdly, that the future incumbent, whoever it might be, would in all probability die very soon. Oh, Tom.
He's just totally thoughtless.
Selfish?
Thoughtless. He's not deliberately going out. He's not a Mrs Norris. He's just me.
So landowners often had a church within their parish, and they could gift the right of running that church, of being the clergyman there, to someone, or they could sell it to someone. The parish clergyman would get a tithe, which is 10% of the parishioner's income. So it might not necessarily be money, they might give them chickens or eggs or something. So it could be a quite valuable thing, and as you can see here, it was possible for someone to be a clergyman of more than one establishment, like Sir Thomas is setting up Edmund to be, but you could also sell it. It's like when people would invest money in the government and would get 4 or 5%, which is sort of what we calculate most of the standard incomes on, Mr. Bingley has £100,000 invested, so he gets £5,000 a year. Dr. Grant pays to basically purchase Mansfield Parish and the income that comes with it for himself, and he will have it, in theory, until he dies, which is why Tom is thinking he'll probably die soon and then it'll be fine, it can revert to Edmund. You find this crop up in Sense and Sensibility when Edward Ferrars is gifted the living by Colonel Brandon, and John Dashwood's like, oh, he must just be holding it for somebody. Why would Colonel Brandon not sell it and make money? On Mr. Norris's death, the presentation became the right of a Dr. Grant, who came consequently to reside at Mansfield, and on proving to be a hearty man of 45, seemed likely to disappoint Mr. Bertram's calculations. But no, he was a short-necked, epileptic sort of fellow, and plied well with good things would soon pop off. The ways people talked about each other when, I guess, so much money depended on somebody dying.
People talk about it like that now, really, if you think about it.
I mean, I'll come into money when my parents die, but I don't want them to die.
That's because they're your parents. But somebody, for example, hearing about, you just make some comments about, oh, it'd be nice to have a bigger place or something like that. Somebody like me could think, well, at least you'll be able to inherit something when your parents pop their clocks, you know? And it's not necessarily a maliciousness. It's just as it is, you know what I mean? But with Tom particularly being there. And also I think it's part of Jane's humour. And it was part of the humour at the time, if you think about it, because people did pop their clogs at a drop of the hat.
This is true. People died a lot easier then. He had a wife about 15 years his junior, so Mrs. Grant is about 30, but no children, and they entered the neighbourhood with the usual fair report of being very respectable, agreeable people. Which is a good start.
Which is like, we really don't know anything about them at all, but as far as we know, which means that therefore they must be really quite nice.
The time was now come when Sir Thomas expected his sister-in-law to claim her share in their niece. The change in Mrs. Norris's situation and the improvement in Fanny's age seeming not merely to do away any former objection to their living together, but even to give it the most decided eligibility. And as his own circumstances were rendered less fair than heretofore by some recent losses on his West India estate, in addition to his eldest son's extravagance, it became not undesirable to himself to be relieved from the expense of her support and the obligation of her future provision. In the fullness of his belief that such a thing must be, he mentioned its probability to his wife, and the first time of the subject occurring to her again happened to be when Fanny was present. She calmly observed to her, "So, Fanny, you are going to leave us and live with my sister. How shall you like it?" Lady Bertram.
Oh, she's so oblivious.
Oh, no one can seem to see how awful Mrs. Norris is to Fanny.
Mrs. Norris is one of those classic sociopaths who is very, very good at managing upwards and sideways. You've worked with people like that. I've worked with people like that. They're obnoxious colleagues, obnoxious managers or team leaders, because they'll stab you in the back to make themselves look better. Your managers can never see it because they always seem to be achieving whatever they set out to do. They always talk as they should do, as the manager expects. So it's oblivious. You see it all the time.
And the managers don't notice the high turnover of their staff.
No. And also, it's a little bit changing now because people are quite anti-bullying and things like that. So people would just leave without saying much. They would often just say, oh, I've got a better job somewhere else. And, you can't do anything about that. And some people can't leave.
Fanny was too much surprised to do more than repeat her aunt's words. Going to leave you? Also, I should mention that I can't do voices. You're not going to be able to tell who's talking. Yes, my dear. Why should you be astonished? You have been 5 years with us, and my sister always meant to take you when Mr. Norris died. That's not what happened.
No. That was always Sir and Lady Bertram's assumption.
But you must come up and tack on my patterns all the same.
I still want to make use of you, please.
You do the hard bits.
Yes.
There's a lovely scene later on when Fanny gets through the most difficult part of her, I think it might be carpet work for her, while Lady Bertram's dozing on the sofa. The news was as disagreeable to Fanny as it had been unexpected. She had never received kindness from her Aunt Norris and could not love her. Ooh. That's savage. Because you'd think Fanny would love someone just because they are her aunt and she sees them all the time.
Look, she's not that much of a wimp after all. She certainly says she cannot love Mrs Norris. Whereas a Mary would say, it is my Christian duty.
That is very Mary Bennet.
Quite different.
I shall be very sorry to go away, said she with a faltering voice. Oh, she already wants to cry. Yes, I dare say you will. That's natural enough. I suppose you had as little to vex you since you came into this house as any creature in the world. Apart from Mrs Norris, who you are sending her to. I hope I am not ungrateful, Aunt, said Fanny modestly. You could just put that on any, said Fanny modestly. Anytime Fanny speaks.
But she's not sanctimonious.
She's got a little kernel of evil in there. She can feel jealousy.
Oh, yes.
And she can wish bad things on people.
Yes.
No, my dear, I hope not. I have always found you a very good girl. And am I never to live here again? Never, my dear. But you're sure of a comfortable home? No. It can make very little difference to you whether you're in one house or the other.
Oblivious.
Fanny left the room with a very sorrowful heart and could not feel the difference to be so small. She could not think of living with her aunt with anything like satisfaction. As soon as she met with Edmund, she told him her distress. Cousin, said she, something is going to happen which I do not like at all, and though you have often persuaded me into being reconciled to things that I disliked at first, you will not be able to do it now. I am going to live entirely with my Aunt Norris. Indeed? Yes. My Aunt Bertram has just told me so. It is quite settled. I am to leave Mansfield Park and go to the White House, I suppose, as soon as she is removed there. Well, Fanny, if the plan were not unpleasant to you, I should call it an excellent one. Oh, cousin! It has everything else in its favour. My aunt is acting like a sensible woman and wishing for you. She is choosing a friend and companion exactly where she ought, and I am glad her love of money does not interfere, so they can see that. You will be what you ought to be to her. I hope it does not distress you very much, Fanny. Indeed it does. I cannot like it. I love this house and everything in it. I shall love nothing there. You know how uncomfortable I feel with her. I can say nothing for her manner to you as a child, but it was the same with us all, or nearly so. She never knew how to be pleasant to children, and you are now of an age to be treated better. I think she is behaving better already. And when you are her only companion, you must be important to her. Oh, this breaks my heart. Fanny says, I can never be important to anyone. What is to prevent you? Everything. My situation, my foolishness and awkwardness. As to your foolishness and awkwardness, my dear Fanny, believe me, you never have a shadow of either, but in using the word so improperly. There is no reason in the world why you should not be important where you are known. You have good sense and a sweet temper, and I am sure you have a grateful heart that could never receive kindness without wishing to return it. I do not know any better qualifications for a friend and companion. You are too kind, said Fanny, colouring at such praise. How shall I ever thank you as I ought for thinking so well of me? Oh, cousin, if I am to go away, I shall remember your goodness to the last moment of my life. Why indeed, Fanny? I should hope to be remembered at such a distance as the White House. You speak as if you were going 200 miles off, instead of only just across the park. But you will belong to us almost as much as ever. The two families will be meeting every day in the year. The only difference will be that living with your aunt, you will necessarily be brought forward as you ought to be. Here there are too many whom you can hide behind, but with her you will be forced to speak for yourself. Oh, do not say so.
They have absolutely no idea what Mrs Norris is like. Mrs Norris isn't going to sit quietly at the White House. She's going to be at the big house as much as she ever was.
Her abuse of Fanny is going to escalate.
Of course it would. They just don't see it. If she thought by saying Fanny's to live with her as a companion that would exclude her from the White House, she'd make Fanny's life an absolute misery.
Poison her slowly. I must say it, and say it with pleasure. Mrs Norris is much better fitted than my mother for having the charge of you now. She is of a temper to do a great deal for anybody she really interests herself about. I mean, that's not exactly wrong.
No, that's right, and that's what I'm saying. She's seen as having a lot of energy, doing a lot of things. She is educated, dotes on the nieces.
The problem being that she does not care about Fanny.
No.
She sees her as an interloper, even though she's the one that brought her in. And she will force you to do justice to your natural powers.
Yeah, right.
Fanny sighed and said, I cannot see things as you do, but I ought to believe you to be right rather than myself. Oh my God, how much does she say that throughout this book? I think this, but you must be right.
Well, she just doesn't think much of herself. The only one who has taken any notice of her has been Edmund, but he's been doing it in a very... Teacher, he's what, 7 years older than her?
6 years
older. Years older than her? He's always been in a position of superiority, and up till now, she's never really been in a position to doubt his judgment.
And I am very much obliged to you for trying to reconcile me to what must be. If I could suppose my aunt really to care for me, it would be delightful to feel myself of consequence to anybody. Poor Fanny. Here, I know I am of none, and yet I love the place so well. This actually makes me want to cry. It's like nobody loves me, nobody cares for me, I'm not important.
She'd be kidding herself if she felt otherwise. It's not being falsely modest or anything. It's what they're telling her every day.
It's awful.
She's being abused. That's psychologically. I mean, she's been neglected by the others. So not, but with the combination of Mrs Norris, who's basically doing the psychological abuse.
I fear that had she moved into the White House with Mrs Norris, it would escalate to physical abuse.
Oh, it would have done. I suppose this is the Cinderella story, really, isn't it?
The place, Fanny, is what you will not quit, though you quit the house. You will have as free a command of the park and gardens as ever. Even your constant little heart need not take fright at such a nominal change. You will have the same walks to frequent, the same library to choose from, the same people to look at, the same horse to ride. Okay, we've just changed location because the background rain noise was too much.
I've just checked, and the requirements for becoming a priest or deacon in the Anglican Church is that the deacon must be at least 23 years of age or older.
Ah, so you did have at least 2 years to go.
Yes. You need to take holy orders to be able to administer the sacraments. That has to be done by a qualified priest.
Or do they do that every service in the Anglican Church?
No, they'll quite often do a monthly communion. Or they may have a communion service first thing in the morning and then just have an ordinary family service. So it tends to depend upon the church. I think they have to do it at least every month. No, I'll get an Anglican that will come on and tell me that I'm wrong.
Sorry, I was raised Catholic. I only know how things go in the Catholic Church. And I haven't been for a very long time. So
and I haven't been to the Anglican Church for a long time either.
Even your constant little heart need not take fright at such a nominal change.
Oh, God. And he's a boy. I mean, let's be honest, they are not exactly.
And then someone comes on and tells us you can't say that about boys. Not all men.
No, but in this day and in that day and age,
You'll have the same walks to frequent, the same library to choose from, the same people to look at, the same horse to ride. Very true. Yes, dear old grey pony. Ah, cousin, when I remember how much I used to dread riding, what terrors it gave me to hear it talked of as likely to do me good. Oh, how I have trembled at my uncle's opening his lips if horses were talked of. And then think of the kind pains you took to reason and persuade me out of my fears, and convince me that I should like it after a little while, and feel how right you proved to be. I am inclined to hope that you may always prophesy as well.
Personally, I think if a woman can ride well side saddle, she can outride any man, ever.
It's got to be bad for your back, right?
You have to have a really, really strong core. Your balance has to be exceptional.
Just sounds like too much like work.
It was ridiculous. It was totally ridiculous. You saw them go hunting and doing some of the jumps on basically a saddle where you've only got 1 foot in the stirrup.
Surprising more people didn't die.
I think you'll find that quite a lot of people died.
I think one of Jane's cousins died in a horse riding accident. And I am quite convinced that your being with Mrs Norris will be as good for your mind as riding has been for your health. And as much for your ultimate happiness too. Absolutely clueless.
I think at this point in time, the scales are starting to come off Fanny's eyes.
Edmund has no idea what he's talking about. So ended their discourse, which, for any very appropriate service it could render Fanny, might as well have been spared.
Yes.
For Mrs Norris had not the smallest intention of taking her. It had never occurred to her on the present occasion, but as a thing to be carefully avoided. To prevent its being expected, she had fixed on the smallest habitation which could rank as genteel among the buildings of the Mansfield parish, the White House being only just large enough for her to receive herself and her servants, and allow a spare room for a friend, of which she made a very particular point. The spare rooms at the parsonage had never been wanted, because Mrs Norris has no friends. But the absolute necessity of a spare room for a friend was now never forgotten. Not all her precautions, however, could save her from being suspected of something better, or perhaps her very display of the importance of a spare room might have misled Sir Thomas to suppose it really intended for Fanny.
Oh, heavens.
Lady Bertram soon brought the matter to a certainty by carelessly observing to Mrs Norris, "Why is Lady Bertram doing all the legwork here? Why is Sir Thomas not actually having this conversation with Fanny and Mrs Norris?"
Because it's not his duty.
Oh.
It's Lady Bertram's duty. She's in charge of the female servants, the female relatives, the female staff. If he was a true autocrat, then he might be controlling everything, but he's not.
I had not thought of it like that. I think, sister, we need not keep Miss Lee any longer when Fanny goes to live with you. Mrs Norris almost started. Live with me, dear Lady Bertram? What do you mean? Is not she to live with you? I thought you had settled it with Sir Thomas. Me? Never. I never spoke a syllable about it to Sir Thomas, nor he to me. Fanny live with me. The last thing in the world for me to think of. Or for anybody to wish that really knows us both. Good heaven, what could I do with Fanny? Me, a poor, helpless, forlorn widow. That just reminds me of the widows and pantomimes.
Yes. And the irony is, of course, a poor, forlorn widow, in theory, would do well with a companion.
Right? Me, a poor, helpless, forlorn widow, unfit for anything. My spirits quite broke down. What could I do with a girl at her time of life, a girl of 15, the age of all others to need most attention and care, and put the cheerfulest spirits to the test? Sure, Sir Thomas could not seriously expect such a thing. Sir Thomas is too much my friend. Nobody that wishes me well, I am sure, would propose it. How came Sir Thomas to speak to you about it? Indeed, I do not know. I suppose he thought it best. But what did he say? He could not say he wished me to take Fanny. I'm sure in his heart he could not wish me to do it. No, he only said he thought it very likely, and I thought so too. We both thought it would be a comfort to you. But if you do not like it, there is no more to be said. She is no encumbrance here. Dear sister, if you consider my unhappy state, how can she be any comfort to me? Here I am, a poor, desolate widow, deprived of the best of husbands, my health gone in attending and nursing him, my spirits still worse, all my peace in this world destroyed, with barely enough to support me in the rank of a gentlewoman, and enable me to live so as not to disgrace the memory of the dear departed. What possible comfort could I have in taking such a charge upon me as Fanny? If I could wish it for my own sake, I would not do so unjust a thing by the poor girl. She is in good hands and sure of doing well. I must struggle through my sorrows and difficulties as I can. God, she's a drama queen.
Hypocrite.
It says she considered that she could do very well without him. In one of the adaptations, I think it's the 1999 one with Francis O'Connor, Mr. Norris dies, he falls over at the table, and Mrs. Norris just rings a bell. For someone to come and get him.
Oh dear. Yes, I can imagine that.
Then you will not mind living by yourself quite alone. Dear Lady Bertram, what am I fit for but solitude, which is why I'm at your house all the time.
Yes.
Now and then I shall hope to have a friend in my little cottage. I shall always have a bed for a friend. But the most part of my future days will be spent in utter seclusion. I can but make both ends meet. That's all I ask for. I hope, sister, things are not so very bad with you neither, considering. Sir Thomas says you'll have 600 a year. That's an insane amount of money.
That's a ridiculous amount of money.
For one person. Consider the Dashwood family, the girls, and their mother are on £450 a year. And there's 4 of them. Lady Bertram, I do not complain. I know I cannot live as I have done. They're on £2,000 a year.
They'd only get $1,000 investment as a dowry.
Each of the girls,
Each of the girls. Be living on about 50.
Oh, you mean when Mr. Bennet dies?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mrs. Bennet had 5,000, so that's 250 if Mr. Bennet dies and they're not married. Lady Bertram, I do not complain. I know I cannot live as I have done, but I must retrench where I can and learn to be a better manager. I have been a liberal housekeeper enough, but I shall not be ashamed to practice economy now. My situation is as much altered as my income. A great many things are due from poor Mr. Norris, as clergyman of the parish, that cannot be expected from me. It is unknown how much was consumed in our kitchen by odd comers and goers. I imagine not very much, because later on in the book, she kicks out Dick, or was it Dick's son? The builder's son. He's not getting free food. Get rid of him.
And it talks earlier about her, she's very good at practicing economy.
At the White House, matters must be better looked after. I must live within my income, or I shall be miserable. And I own it would give me a great satisfaction to be able to do rather more, to lay by a little at the end of the year. I dare say you will. You always do, don't you? I know Lady Bertram isn't very sharp, but...
Every now and then.
Yeah.
Every now and then. I do wonder whether she would have exerted herself a bit more if Mrs. Norris hadn't been around.
Probably would have had to.
She would have had to. She does not like conflict.
My object, Lady Bertram, is to be of use to those that come after me. It is for your children's good that I wish to be richer. I have nobody else to care for, but I should be very glad to think I could leave a little trifle among them worth their having. That's ridiculous. They're probably getting thousands of pounds from their father.
And if they were thinking at all, she should be thinking of Fanny.
But she never thinks of Fanny.
Nope.
You are very good, but do not trouble yourself about them. They are sure of being well provided for. Sir Thomas will take care of that. Interestingly, it's never mentioned what Sir Thomas's income is. We know it's less than 12,000 because Mr. Rushworth makes 12,000, and we don't know what the girls' dowries are.
They don't make a big thing of his income at all. We know it must be reasonable, but we do know that it had suffered from difficulties in the West Indies, and that could be, I think there might have been a slave revolt at one point.
Well, one of the arguments about this book and why it's set in so specific a time, i.e. it starts 30 years before the time it's published, is supposedly that it's set during the time that the abolishment of slavery was going on. So that this is one of a scholarly thing that I've read, saying that this is the theory around the book, that yes, this is why he goes, because the abolishment of slavery and the revolts with slaves in the West Indies. You are very good, but do not trouble yourself about them. They are sure to be well provided for. Sir Thomas will take care of them. Why, you know Sir Thomas's means will be rather straitened if the Antigua estate is to make such poor returns. Oh, that will soon be settled. Sir Thomas has been writing about it, I know. Well, Lady Bertram, said Mrs. Norris, moving to go. I've settled my point. I'm getting the hell out of here. I can only say that my sole desire is to be of use to your family. And so, if Sir Thomas should ever speak again about my taking Fanny, you will be able to say that my health and spirits put it quite out of the question. Besides that, I really should not have a bed to give her, for I must keep a spare room for a friend.
That's actually one of the longest conversations we have between Mrs. Norris and Lady Bertram.
It's very unusual for Lady Bertram to talk.
Yes, she's pretty much of a cipher most of the way through.
Lady Bertram repeated enough of this conversation to her husband to convince him how much he had mistaken his sister-in-law's views. And she was, from that moment, perfectly safe from all expectation or the slightest allusion to it from him. He could not but wonder at her refusing to do anything for a niece whom she had been so forward to adopt. Quite reasonable.
Yes.
But as she took early care to make him, as well as Lady Bertram, understand that whatever she possessed was designed for their family, he soon grew reconciled to a distinction, which at the same time that it was advantageous and complementary to them, would enable him better to provide for Fanny herself, which is exactly what Mrs Norris does not want. She does not want her money going to Fanny.
No.
But Sir Thomas has just gone, cool, any money that you give us, we're going to give it to Fanny. Fanny soon learnt how unnecessary had been her fears of a removal, and her spontaneous, untaught felicity on the discovery conveyed some consolation to Edmund for his disappointment in what he expected to be so essentially serviceable to her. I don't know why he thinks that.
He's just oblivious.
Oh, I mean...
Look, think how many 23-year-old boys do you know?
You're not many.
I mean, they've got a lot more exposure to female culture now and expectations and things. But in those days, it was...
She's outgoing. You being with her will make you more outgoing. It's not how it works.
No.
It will just tire out the introvert. Mrs Norris took possession of the White House. The Grants arrived at the parsonage, and these events over, everything at Mansfield went on for some time as usual. The Grants, showing a disposition to be friendly and sociable, gave great satisfaction in the main among their new acquaintance. They had their faults, and Mrs Norris soon found them out. The doctor was very fond of eating, and would have a good dinner every day, and Mrs Grant, instead of contriving to gratify him at little expense, gave her cook as high wages as they did at Mansfield Park, and was scarcely ever seen in her offices. Mrs Norris could not speak with any temper of such grievances, nor of the quantity of butter and eggs that were regularly consumed in the house. Nobody loved plenty and hospitality more than herself. Nobody more hated pitiful doings. The parson, she believed, had never been wanting in comforts of any sort, had never borne a bad character in her time, but this was a way of going on that she could not understand. A fine lady in a country parsonage was quite out of her place. Her storeroom, she thought, might have been good enough for Mrs Grant to go into. Inquire where she would, she could not find out that Mrs Grant had ever had more than £5,000. She had 7, so obviously she feels she's the superior. Lady Bertram listened without much interest to this sort of invective. She could not enter into the wrongs of an economist. She felt all the injuries of beauty in Mrs Grant's being so well settled in life without being handsome.
And that's, I think, what really annoys Mrs Norris more than anything else. And let's be honest, her husband did nothing but eat as well. Something about the alphabet of clergy. There's a quote somewhere. And there was a satirical alphabet or poem about the clergy, and one of them was the red-faced glutton clergyman.
And expressed her astonishment on that point almost as often, though not so diffusely as Mrs Norris discussed the other. These opinions had been hardly canvassed a year before another event arose of such importance in the family as might fairly claim some place in the thoughts and conversation of the ladies. Sir Thomas found it expedient to go to Antigua himself for the best arrangements of his affairs, and he took his eldest son with him, in the hope of detaching him from some bad connections at home.
Guess who that might be?
Could be anyone, to be fair.
Mr Yates?
He hasn't met Mr Yates yet. He meets him at Weymouth. He's only known him like 10 days before Mr Yates turns up at his house. But it's exactly the sort of friendships that he makes. He knows someone for a week and then they're his best friend and he invites them to come visit. They left England with a probability of being nearly a 12-month absent. The necessity of the measure in a pecuniary light and the hope of its utility to his son reconciled Sir Thomas to the effort of quitting the rest of his family and of leaving his daughters to the direction of others at their present most interesting time of life. He could not think Lady Bertram quite equal to supply his place with them, or rather to perform what should have been her own. But in Mrs Norris's watchful attention and in Edmund's judgment, he had sufficient confidence to make him go without fears for their conduct. Poor man. Lady Bertram did not at all like to have her husband leave her, but she was not disturbed by any alarm for his safety or solicitude for his comfort, being one of those persons who think nothing can be dangerous or difficult or fatiguing to anybody but themselves. I love that line. The Miss Bertrams were much to be pitied on the occasion, not for their sorrow, but for their want of it. Their father was no object of love to them. He had never seemed the friend of their pleasures, and his absence was unhappily most welcome. They were relieved by it from all restraint, and without aiming at one gratification that would probably have been forbidden by Sir Thomas, they felt themselves immediately at their own disposal, and have every indulgence within their reach. Fanny's relief, and her consciousness of it, were quite equal to her cousin's, but a more tender nature suggested that her feelings were ungrateful, and she really grieved because she could not grieve. Sir Thomas, who had done so much for her and her brothers, who was gone perhaps never to return, that she should see him go without a tear, it was a shameful insensibility. He had said to her, moreover, on the very last morning, that he hoped she might see William again in the course of the ensuing winter, and had charged her to write and invite him to Mansfield as soon as the squadron to which he belonged should be known to be in England. This was so thoughtful and kind, and would he only have smiled upon her and called her my dear Fanny, while he said it, every former frown or cold address might have been forgotten. But he had ended his speech in a way to sink her in sad mortification, by adding, "If William does come to Mansfield, I hope you may be able to convince him that the many years which have passed since you parted have not been spent on your side entirely without improvement, though I fear he must find his sister at 16 in some respects too much like his sister at 10. She cried bitterly over this reflection when her uncle was gone, and her cousins, on seeing her with red eyes, set her down as a hypocrite. She just wants love.
She's had nobody really saying that she has any value. And even Edmund is sort of damning her with faint praise. And it's done in a very patronising way. He's practising being a minister at this point, really.
Here's how you be a good girl.
Yes.
But you can see why she attaches herself to Edmund, because he's the only one that really shows her any attention.
Yes.
Because even though she's kind of essential to Lady Bertram doesn't really seem to care about anyone but herself.
And, Sir Thomas is obviously not a warm man. He's obviously not a smiling man. But then again, he's having to go off to Antigua to sort out some pretty nasty business and take his eldest son, who's currently a wastrel, with him.
And going for a whole year.
At least, yes. It wasn't just like getting on a plane and going in those days. The risks were quite significant.
And it was months to get there, wasn't it?
It was certainly a long time, even on the fastest ship. But yes, it would be a long time. This really starts to set the scene up now for the Crawfords to come on board for the play, for a whole change. Because the one restraining influence over the whole family is Sir Bertram. Now he's left, so all the controls have gone. Because Mrs Norris is only a control freak when it comes to Fanny.
And the others do not listen to her. I think it sets up Fanny quite well as well, that you're like, okay, so she's now 16, she's still not sure of her place, she's still not comfortable, and she still is essentially a very good person. She wants to be good, and she's like, I'm recognizing that I'm not good. I should be sad that my uncle's going away, but I feel relieved. I'm a bad person. She still essentially wants to be a very good person.
She totally lacks confidence in herself. She is only 16, but in some respects probably going on 14, She's quite immature, I think, emotionally, but then again more mature than the older sisters. But sanctimonious? No, she's not sanctimonious at all. Sanctimonious is Mary Bennet.
Yeah, because Fanny's got an internal war going on. I realise I shouldn't feel these things. I'm not as good a person as I should be. Whereas Mary Bennet is just, no, this is what I think and it is right.
Or she would actually phrase it with, it is my Christian duty to be...
mourn my uncle?
Yes, mourn is possibly too long a word. She'd be more likely to say it's my Christian duty to regret the fact that my uncle's going to go because there'll be nobody controlling my older sisters. Quite a different thing.
And that is our discussion, summary, analysis, our talk about Chapter 3 of Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. We are still doing our online group read through to the 22nd of September, so do contact me if you'd like to join. My name is Frances Duncan. You can find me at francesduncanwrites.com and on Twitter at Frances_Duncan. Thank you for listening, and we wish you happy reading.